at Nantymoyle. Wyndham Western is the last colliery in the valley and one of the oldest pits in South Wales. The first shafts were sunk 120 years ago. The coal board says that geological conditions at the pit are so bad that a new coal face had to be abandoned almost as soon as it was opened. The board says average losses of £60 per tonne of coal mined soared in the first half of this year to £140. Miners at Wyndham Western meet tomorrow to discuss the NCB's proposal. A spokesman for the lodge said tonight that they would appeal against the planned closure.
The National Coal Board says the Wyndham Western colliery in the Ogmore Valley is losing too much money and its closure may be announced by the end of the week. Miners, however, at the pit have vowed to fight the proposed shutdown and they've asked the Coal Board to reconsider its position.
The pit's workforce of over 500 campaigned successfully against closure 3 years ago, but this time their future looks bleak. The Coal Board says the pit is losing money heavily and the best coal reserves were exhausted long ago. Since 1980, the workforce has been halved and the worsening geological conditions has cut weekly output at the pit to just 1,500 tonnes. The 118-year-old colliery is the last in the Ogmore Valley, and union leaders are already warning that its closure could mean economic disaster for an area where male unemployment is already 15%.
We are absolutely adamant in this pit that there are reserves which can be worked to the south of the pit. There are reserves in our present take which can be worked economically and viably, and we feel that our course of action must be to tell the Coal Board that we must go and do the work in these reserves.
What sort of impact would the closure have on the area?
Well, the impact would obviously be one of catastrophe as far as the Ogmore Valley is concerned. But more than that, what we are concerned about within the movement is that once they take Wyndham Western off the map, then it leaves the Coal Board then time to concentrate on some other unfortunate pit.
Over the years, we've been promised that there are vast reserves in the colliery, and now we find ourselves in this very sad position today where the Coal Board is saying that these reserves cannot be sensibly worked.
If the colliery shuts, what sort of impact will it have on the local community?
Well, nobody can actually foresee this. We are a very determined community. We've had our ups and downs. You know, this colliery here has produced a lot of sadness. It has also produced a lot of goodness. It's been good to the valley. But if we go on what has happened in other valleys, you know, there's no doubt about it that they have died slowly. And we can only take a guidance from what has happened in other valleys or what will happen here.
Supporting, I believe that the trade union movement today is under serious threat, and all trade unionists must rally around the miners. I believe we have got a sorry state where we've got miners actually crossing picket lines, and I think if the NHS workers can support them, then we need to support them today.
We've been clobbered, all the trade unions have been clobbered by Mrs Thatcher, and I think we should all stick together, and where the TUC is, I don't know, that to pull everybody out.
Just 200 pickets, while police numbers were also kept down. Reinforcements, including men from 2 other forces, were always nearby, though. By late morning, the miners' patience ended and they surged forward to try and stop a coke truck leaving the works. Most lorries had been crossing the picket line and the miners' frustration finally showed. The police pushed back and a succession of rugby scrums developed. Each time the pickets were edged back to the pavement. Unlike yesterday, the police seemed to be trying to avoid arrests, although one miner was injured. But numerous pickets claimed that in the centre of such scrums, out of sight, they're being kicked and punched by police officers.
And today, the South Wales Police have strongly denied a Welsh Labour MP's claim that they've been tapping miners' telephones. Ray Powell, the MP for Ogmore, claimed in the Commons last night that miners' leaders had deliberately laid false trails over the telephone and later found the police at the very places mentioned. The Chief Constable of South Wales, David East, has described that accusation as absolute nonsense. Mr Powell's allegations follow similar claims from some Yorkshire miners' leaders earlier in the dispute, but this was the first time for the subject to be raised in the Commons. A Welsh coach operator said today that he'd been contacted twice by the Derbyshire police shortly after South Wales miners had made arrangements to carry pickets to the Derbyshire area. Ray Powell also accuses the police of being over-aggressive when dealing with pickets at Port Talbot Steelworks. Mr Powell, you've heard the police denials. Do you stand by your allegations?
Well, I don't believe it's absolute nonsense when we're having reports from all over the country of allegations of phone tapping. And I am convinced in my mind, not only because of the coach proprietor, but from other strike pickets that have gone all over the country that this is happening to telephones.
But don't you accept there could have been a set of coincidences? The police are, after all, having to go to areas where there may be trouble.
Yes, but we have proved conclusively that the police have been in areas where they should not have been.
You're satisfied that your evidence is firm enough for such allegations?
I'm satisfied, absolutely satisfied, that there has been phone tapping.
You've also made allegations about over-aggressive behaviour by the police. Don't you believe that the police are, in fact, confronted with an enormously difficult situation?
We know the difficult problems the police have got, but also the pickets have a right to be in certain areas, protesting, trying to save their jobs. And only tonight, before we come on to this programme, my agent, Muriel Williams, Councillor Muriel Williams in Antamoyle, rang in to say that her son had rung her urgently to ask me to raise the question about the viciousness of the police by kicking a young boy who was taken unconscious to hospital. Now, that's aggressiveness by the police, and it's time it was stopped.
This is a very tense dispute. There is division between the miners in Britain. It's going to lead to ugly scenes. Isn't it important now that the police aren't undermined by statements such as yours today?
We are not trying to undermine the police, but when we've got Mr. Sid Evans of Llanarran, who rang me in only earlier today to tell me that the police that he was talking to has said that it was not the Glamorgan police, but it was the Cardiff City police that went to Margam yesterday, and it was the aggressiveness as soon as they had got there and not before they had got there.
Mr. Powell, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
South Wales Police strongly deny Mr Powell's allegations. Today, the Chief Constable, David East, called a special press conference.
State of shock, yeah. State of shock.
Now, throughout this week, the police have been denying they've used violence. Are you absolutely sure?
Well, I'll tell you something now then.
Yes.
If you want proof that they are doing it, come in amongst the pickets with us and see what they are doing with their feet and their elbows and their fists are flying.
They had him over the fence, see they had him over the fence and his arms behind his back, and they were twisting his arms behind his back, and they were dragging him along the fence. And he said he didn't do nothing.
Was it unprovoked?
Yeah, it was unprovoked, for no reason at all. Then another one of the boys was just standing there on his own, and two other coppers grabbed hold of him for no reason at all. They taken him down the police station.
If they knew the character of the boy's very, very quiet.
That boy's very quiet.
When they actually picked on Jeff, I was very surprised, that they picked on that type of lad, because they could have picked on someone else. But when I seen what actually happened, with the way they was turning his arms around his back, it's bloody marvellous, so they never broke his arm. That's what I was very concerned about.
At what stage did he actually collapse, though?
Well, after about, like I said, 5 to 10 minutes after they manhandled him, as far as I'm concerned, right? To leave him go, the bloody boy's colour was going. You could see him, he was going bloody purple, he was.
As his lodge official, how do you feel about what's happened?
Well, I'll be honest about it. I've been all over the country, and I'll speak clean and speak straight to you, right? Now, the police down here in certain parts, they're pretty good, right? In comparison with other parts of the country. But when I come up against a case like this, I think it's bloody terrible, because the point is, we've come down here on picketing, and peaceful picketing, all right? Nothing's gone wrong at all whatsoever. We've been down here for 3 days. And when I see something like this, and I change my mind completely, all right? I'll be honest about it. I've always been a type of person to say, well, for the police, I would help them out in any fight at all, if I've ever seen anything on the road. But I've completely changed my mind now. I'd even walk over them.
Mr Coombs later regained consciousness and was taken by ambulance to Neath Hospital.